I guess I'll spare you from the 40-minute video I made last night of doing this. But here we are. 15 column, 15 steering wheel, bracket. Kabam! Welded on. Not too shabby if I do say so myself. It's probably, you know, it's obviously not the first time I've welded, but it ain't, you know, ain't the most professional stuff, but whatever. I welded it on this side and from the other side first because this was in the truck and I tacked it together. The other side looks more like shit because you know, you're working in such a tight space where you can't even really get the wand for the welder in there and whatever else. Excuses and more excuses, but so there are some chicken shit, you know, just where I was trying to tack it together, but then I came along once it was out and melted along this edge and married the two together a little bit. I should probably do a little bit more in between where that little gap is between the two blobs. But either way, I don't think that's coming off anytime soon. It does look goofy as all get out, but let me tell you, that sucker ain't gonna go anywhere. And I was surprised after just the chicken shit weld I initially did inside the truck and pulling the column out and whatnot. It came out, so that's a bonus, right? And it held together, so I melted the plastic, obviously, but oh well, life goes on. I did notice we were going to have an issue. I'm trying to think. I thought it was a piece of aluminum. Actually, it's this piece right here. So I'm going to have to come in here and cut this corner off because there is very little room between the stud and the nut. I had to keep pulling the column out in order to take the nut completely off. So, not a big deal. Kind of, not really, but just because it's a little tight now, but whatever. Anyway, and I was kind of thinking maybe I'd come in along the back side, maybe just trim this back ring off a little bit, just because it's completely unnecessary. But it is what it is. Probably adds some structural rigidity. I don't know. So the column is now ready to be installed in the truck when I have an airbag and the whole 9 yards. And you know, the information I was spewing in my 40-minute video yesterday was not so relevant. Now that I have some more information, and I'm not so terribly thrilled about this information I found out. You know, okay, let's say start here. When I was looking at buying a steering column, I called this place. He got the steering column. He goes, well, what's wrong with yours? And I go, to be honest, I'm putting it in my older truck, blah, 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 blah. And he, actually, no, I'm sorry. I'm putting it in, adding the options of the heated steering wheel and whatnot to my truck. And that's where I left it. And he goes, well, I can tell you right now that's not going to work. You got all these modules and whatever. Well, let me tell you, sir, anything's possible, okay? When you got technology on your side, which, oh, good Lord, I don't. But anything's possible at that point. So I just said, whatever, thanks, bye. And I found wiring diagrams and schematics for how some of this works. I haven't found out the buttons over there yet, but the buttons over here, the cruise control, it is one wire, and I know, well, I mentioned it in my video yesterday, so that's why I remember mentioning it, but that I didn't post, and I won't post because it's just garbage, but irrelevant at this point, but one wire for all of these buttons. So I would need a decoder box, kind of like the use for volume controls for aftermarket radios, that would decode the signal from the steering wheel and transmit it to different wires that go to what is the cruise control switch portion on here, you know. So, because Dad had, you know, said it and I totally forgotten. Pulse width modulation. You know, every button's got a different pulse or a different signal pulse sent to the computer, and it's all sent through one wire to the BCM or something like that, which knows what to do with that. You know, it's kind of like Morse code, except for electronics. You know, if you hit one button and that one button's got a code of doo-doo-doo, and the computer recognizes that code and says, oh yeah, let's speed up or set the cruise or do whatever, So I need a decoder box for something like that. And that just doesn't exist, and I'm not a programmer. So if I were, trust me, I'd have so much more stuff done. But I'd probably also have gray hair too. But so I also found the plug for this guy on the schematic. I haven't looked it up yet, but I found the number and whatnot. I took all screenshots of it, and it told me what wires did what, and I think it was mainly the wipers. Obviously, just the wipers, and I think the top plug had to do with this guy, because I think there's 5 pins in there, but I don't know. Whatever. There's so much going on, and I got a feeling there's only one wire for these guys too. I saw last night as this was in the truck I was looking at, and I was going, shit, this project is not going to work the way I want it to. I'm probably not going to be able to control my DIC, the driver information display, with the trip and the odometer and all that stuff with the buttons on the steering wheel, the new one. Again, I'd probably need a decoder box that did all that stuff, converted all this info over to an analog, more analog than this probably is type of thing, that the truck would understand, and split it out into multiple wires like the steering wheel uses. So, oh lordy, and let me take a look here, just because I'm curious. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there are 10 wires coming out of the clock spring, and the new thing is supposed to be 10 pins as well, but they're different. Obviously, one's illumination, one's power, one's ground, and I saw on there what's really getting me right now, and I don't know how this works. The one schematic showed the steering wheel heater button going to a steering wheel heater control module, which said it's located in the steering wheel itself behind the airbag. I'm like, okay, so I think I found a picture online where it's tucked in here or something like that. It's tucked in the steering wheel. And so I believe, obviously, that module is just going to be drawing voltage from the supply wire to the heating coil, and it's modulating the current flow or something like that, so it gently warms up without, frying the heater or something. Not overpopulating the voltage, whatever, I don't know. I'm just talking out my ass. I'm not talking like I know electronics, but you know what I'm saying. So there's a module for that, and in that schematic, it didn't say anything about one of those 10 pins or 10 wires from the steering wheel being for the heater control. So it doesn't seem like there's gonna be a way for me, because that module also reported to the BCM. I saw that, but I saw that there was a communication wire in that one of those 10 pins. So I don't know if it's getting permission from the BCM to turn on the steering wheel heater, or if it's just letting the BCM know, hey, the steering wheel heater's on, whatever, because I'm wondering, when I supply voltage to the steering wheel via the battery supply and all that stuff, that it'll just turn the steering wheel heater on when I press the button. The button is signaling the module to turn on the steering wheel heat, that kind of thing. But something's telling me it doesn't work that way, that for some dumb reason it would probably send a signal from the button to the BCM to turn on the module. That's kind of what I'm thinking, Why it would be overly complicated, I don't know. But that's engineers and electrical engineers for you. If we can make this as difficult as possible, let's do it. Why does the steering wheel module need to communicate with the BCM? unless it's saying, unless the module has a failure, and that's probably it. If the module has a failure, the BCM is going to see that communication or lack of communication, an error code or something to say, hey, throw a code in the BCM for the steering wheel heater module, so that way, the dealer hooks onto it and sees a code for that, then they can replace the module or steering wheel or whatever, So that's probably, I'm hoping the button just signals the module to turn on, and then I got steering wheel heat. But in that one of those 10 pins was not only a supply voltage, but there was a 12-volt reference wire. Now, if I am understanding correctly, and like I said, I don't know for sure any of this stuff, I'm just kind of hypothesizing, but if the 12-volt reference has a certain frequency to it that the BCM is communicating to the steering wheel or something, I don't know why it would need a 12-volt reference. If maybe an interruption, if pressing a button interrupts that signal with for a certain duration or something, that BCM is seeing that interruption in that 12-volt reference for a certain amount of time for a specific button pushed to say, hey, that function's being asked to do something, So I don't know how that's going to work, or if I'm going to have to worry about it yet, It's one of those things where we plug everything in, we wire everything up as best as we can, because I don't know if I should, my goodness, I'm pretty sure hooking just a battery 12 volts up to a 12-volt reference isn't going to work the same. It needs that specific frequency. That's what the reference is. It's a specific frequency it communicates, I'm guessing. I'm learning things, and I'm learning things as I go, and once I have all this in, then I'll be like, yep, I was probably right if it's not working, But I'm really hoping the steering wheel heat works. That's the only reason I'm really doing this. I don't care for the steering wheel switches back here. I don't hate it, but it's not, I liked my buttons up here, and if I can't use the BCM, the DIC with this stuff, then we're really going to be up a tree. And like Dad said, it'd be cool if you could use this, the buttons here, but like I said, you need a decoder box to take that, however that communicates, and split it through the wires that are for the cruise control off on the wiring harness of the clock spring. So, interesting things, nonetheless. But I believe I would be able to get this plug and wire it up to what is on the clock spring harness, part of the whole wiring harness. It's all one unit, so to speak, even though it's individual harnesses all bundled. It's all one thing you buy all at once. But anyway, so that I would have high beam, possibly. Now that's if this doesn't have some 12-volt reference BS and all that stuff, but that I'd be able to use this, because this hasn't changed. This still has the same functions as the original turn stock. And then I also saw somewhere it mentioned the 3-flash to pass, but I don't know if that was, it didn't specify if the 3-flash to pass is controlled by the BCM or if it's controlled in the switch itself. So that I'm a little unaware, or if there's a separate turn signal module, like a flasher relay that has some kind of capacitor in it that's charged, that discharges every time you 3-flash to pass. It's charged enough for 3 flashes and it's discharged or something. I don't know, Because these are my ideas on how I was going to do a 3-flash to pass if I could do it. I don't know if I could do it because I'm not an electrician, I'm not a programmer, but, I just have these ideas. Well, if I understand correctly, yada, yada, yada. So, it's just like the little ignition module here, I'm missing a plug. Well, technically I have both the plugs if this does the same thing as the older ignition does, which is this plug right here. You know, if that new plug sticking off the top ring does the same thing as that. But this is a 3-pin, the other one's a 2-pin. You know, then I would just splice if they were the same wires and see what happens. But then I've got the plug there that this one has, and that one I should be able to splice perfectly, because that's 2 wires, and then the old one's 2 wires, and this is a 3-pin. But I don't know that the truck's going to see this thing, this module of sorts, and communicate with it, you know? There's just unknowns. I might have to swap the whole ignition dealy bop over. They mount the same. They're the same shape, design, whatever, so that I can use the old stuff, whatever. But I just wanted to use the 2015 style key ignition. They have the same positions. It's just that this has a wheel lock versus, you know, not having a wheel lock, which, you know, it's kind of cool. It's a little added feature, you know. And then in the video, I also cut out where I tried to put the dash bezel on. I was going to have an issue with this guy hitting the inside, you know, where the dash bezel kind of goes in and curves around. So I'd have to cut a notch in there for this in its rested position. But other than that, I don't know about the knee bolster. I think the knee bolster would be a problem as well. I didn't put that on. I was getting frozen. My feet are freezing right now, so we're just kind of farting in the wind. But the steering wheel, if I would do it over again, I'd get the column that doesn't telescope. It does not offer me any more closeness to the steering wheel. It's pretty much in the exact same distance as the fixed old column. So heads up, FYI, whatever you want to call it. But the one big advantage I see of using this column is the superior. I call it the superiorly better, whatever, steering column bearing. You know, it's not a rattly piece of crap like all these trucks are suffered with. These older trucks, I should say. And they're... I put a brand new OE updated column bearing in. It still rattled. You know, it was loose inside the thing. Not the bearing, but the whole bearing housing, everything that slips up in, rattled inside the tube. I was like, well, this is ass, isn't it? Some OE updated part, freaking garbage, man. The bearing was tight, but jeez, I tell you, it still rattled, so that was annoying. But going around, I don't know if that's the intermediate shaft or if it was column bearing, that when on the old one, when you take a left turn, it goes, you know, that's annoying, but you can pretty much hear that outside. But anyway, so I guess I'll show you kind of what I did, because I'm not posting that 40-minute video because it was a waste of my time and it was a waste of yours. So, and I cut the ears off, the aluminum ears, and then there's another piece around here somewhere. Don't ask me where. You can see what kind of a mess I got to work in. It's not my mess. It was it's other people's mess that just ends up staying there. I don't use that most of the time because I have my own bench vise, but I couldn't tell you where everything's at. That's pretty sad. So they didn't do anything with it. So, but I ended up, you know, if I could find that piece, I tell you. Okay, I found it. So this was the guy. That's part of the piece I welded to. Now, you could see, I guess, how much of it I ended up cutting off. If you had one of these in your hand, I'm not going to measure it, but if you had one of these in your possession, you could clearly see I cut it right behind, about a 1/4 inch-ish, behind the hole. But I had cut the whole thing out, obviously, stuck it in there, it wasn't going to fit, so it's like, alright, cut that off. And that was pretty well perfect, I guess. Obviously, I should probably test fit it one more time to make sure. I really just want to be done with this frickin' thing. It's cold. I'm cold. I'm going on 3 days of farting around, just, you know, dilly-dallying with this. But the fact that I got this, I had this bolted in the truck, stuck the column up to it, and bolted everything, you know, tightened this down so this was flush, and Then welded that, and that's the story. I still got to cut that ear so we have enough room for the bolt, stud, nut, whatever. But yeah, this isn't going to be used till I have an airbag, clock spring, and the necessary plugs to splice this, that, the other. We're going to try it, I guess, is what I'm saying. So, yeah, it is what it is. I mean, yeah. Oh, the joys, right? Oh, my goodness. So, vastly superior column bearing is what I was saying. But this guy is going back in the truck until I have the airbag and whatnot. Not going to be in the budget for a little while. Obviously, we're coming up to tax season, and well, I always get reamed on taxes, so that's always fun. But so tax season, trying to save up for a house, and you know, this was just going to be a cheap, you know, if I had a heated steering wheel, it was $100, throw it in, fiddle fart, whatever, make it work. And turns out we may be wasting our time, but, you know, $100 ain't the end of the world, so, yet. I never know Biden, but anyway, I suppose I got to go. I hope you all enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching. God bless. Okay, so I don't know if this is going to spare you or what. I might have to edit the other video. But if I don't, this is why. You know why. Do your due diligence first. I threw the, you know, the steering column in, and the metal bracket on the column was touching the metal bracket for the bottom, you know, bolts. And I was like, sweet, welded it up, perfect, whatever, pulled it out, welded it all together. Solid as a rock, and then I put it in the truck just one last time, test fit before I say I'm done, and all of a sudden it was like, oh shit, the steering wheel was like way over here, like the center of the steering wheel. I was like, what the fuck has happened? Oh my gosh, this is way weird. You know, and I'm looking at the alignment of the middle of this thing, and it was over here. It was so far off, and I was like, no freaking way. How did I miss that? You know, I didn't sit in here. I didn't look to see how it was aligned or whatnot. And then, so it took a while to cut it off, clean everything up. I tacked it back on where I thought it was perfectly lined up and whatnot, and you know, with the bracket on the column, not on the wheel, not in the truck, nothing like that. I just took it off, welded it together, and called it a day. But then I compared it to this one, because I was like, you know what, let's measure from hole, let's measure, well, for the front of here to the back of here, and see, do. And then I did, and here I was about a 1/4 inch off. Then I looked at it, and I was going, son of a bitch. I was more worried about the center of the shaft being in the center of this, that this was flush. These holes were practically, you know, in perfect alignment with these instead of being cocked way over like it is. I was like, son of a bitch. Oh, how do I keep doing that? Pay attention, damn it. So when you're just eyeballing stuff, and I mean, this is trial and error. This isn't just a formula, do this and do that. I know you can measure 15 billion times and whatnot but now I got it aligned, and it's welded up, and now the bracket is sitting on top. I will show you. Okay, so the bracket is sitting on top of this guy now. And now that it's all welded and goobered together, it's not chicken shit, at least. It's try to just melt one long bead type of thing instead of stacking dimes. But because I had to build a bridge from this gap to this gap, and you know, and I know, oh, you're not, blah, 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 blah. You know what? It works. It works, you know, and you're just cobbling a project together because there's no, you know, stencils. You cut out pieces of metal this way and that way, and they fit together like a puzzle. No. This is just welding two pieces of metal together the best you can. So now everything is pretty much in spec, or so you'd say. Could say, I should say. Say. Yeah, there we go. Trying to do this one-handed. I know, painful to watch, trust me, I know. So we're at about 9 7/8 to the back of the hole. Yeah, 9 7/8. So then we come back over here, call them out of the truck. Come back here, and we're at about that 9 7/8. So it's close enough, is what I'm saying. It's like a 1/16 of an inch off. This one I figured was about, let's see, what am I looking at? About 9 7/8 as well. When you look, if the flash wasn't being such a pile. Can't have everything, can you? About 9 7/8. This guy, I think, is what, 9 3/4. Of course, I was angling it down. Yeah, it's about that 9 3/4-ish. It's close enough to where when I crank this bolt down, the ear is just gonna get sucked in, you know. Or actually, whatever. It is what it is at this point. The point is, the column is in line with the cluster, which is great. The bracket's welded together as much as it physically can be, which is great. Had I not cut this ear off and done all that, I'd have a little bit more to weld with. And but what a cattywampus freaking design they got going on, where this thing's got to be so cocked over, and it's got to forward and over. So kind of annoying, but kind of like me, some people would say. But you know what? It is what it is. The job is done. I'm done with this until I have an airbag. Now I'm going to throw the old column in, clock spring, get it all wired back up, so I can have my truck back, because it's been 3.5 days and I'm just tired of waiting. Oh my gosh. So, looks like a mess. I had to take out the shelf that holds the BCM. I had to take out, obviously, that, because that was in the way too, in order to fit the column in here without snagging and leaning on and getting ready to bust this in half, because all the weight's sitting on it in one spot. And I ended up busting the, I don't know if it's busted, but it popped off. I'm sure that's not a good thing. Yeah, it's not. It did bust it. Piece of plastic there. The release tab for that, but you know what? It is what it is. I'm not going to touch it, and it shouldn't go anywhere, right? So, I'm not worried about it. It is what it is, because the new bracket pretty much leans on top of that, because it's such a deeper, such a deeper shelf, so keep an eye on these guys. They like to pop out, and I had to tap it back in with a hammer. That was messing with the alignment. And then when you get it in the truck and you're trying to just move the steering wheel side to side, just trying to get that alignment just right, and these things are sliding in and out, and you're like, son of F. So I tell you, it's a pain in the ass. But and I also, when I had it in place, I tried to do this one-handed, busted everything. I took a Sharpie and marked out around the bolt, so I knew kind of where it was gonna go, and then kind of semi-adjust from there. But either way, it's a lot more solid having the rear bracket on. Trust me, it is. So that's good to go. We're ready for airbag, clock spring, when the funds allow. So I'm going to toss this puppy back in, because I can't wait to have my truck back. Got other stuff I need to be doing this week than farting around with projects I don't have the money to continue with. So just thought I'd keep you guys informed on who, what, why, where, when. I'm going to get all these loose bolts tightened up that are in here. I don't know how the hell they're loose. I got a freaking climate control bolt that's not all the way in. I don't even know how the hell this stuff does that. But I got to pull that apart anyway. The little blue socks you put over the LEDs fell off some, so you get white and blue in there. And either way, whatever. But interesting fact: if you're doing an LLY or LBZ to an LLY to an LBZ swap, and you have to swap the bracket for the gas pedal over, and you can only use 2 bolts. Now, I always intended to come back in here with a self-tapping screw of sorts. Oh, if I could even see what I'm trying to show you. There, that hole, and screw it to the firewall, because there's only 2 out of the 3 bolts holding this pen. Yeah, gas pedal does move over. Not that you ever notice it, not that you ever feel it or anything. You just step on the gas. That's just how that goes. It does look loose, but it's not that loose. And I don't know if a little bit's that loose bolt, but yet, trust me, I never notice a problem. And 3/4 throttle is just about full throttle at this point, so it hasn't broken or done anything stupid. So there's 2 bolts holding it. 2 out of 3. I don't know where the other one's at. It gets back up behind here. Yep, that's exactly where that's at. So, just an FYI, for some reason they didn't give you a stud back there for the gas pedal. So, they changed the firewall for the 2006. So, isn't that fantastic? Instead of using the original infrastructure, they re-engineered the firewall with an extra stud. Fancy that, eh? So, it's either that or drill through the firewall, hope you don't hit anything, and then put a bolt stud or something through there, or a stud and nut, and then do it that way. There's a possibility, but either way, future projects. It works, and I'm not, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of thing. It ain't broke, so I'll wait till it breaks before I fix it. And I've already put 30,000 miles on this setup, so I don't know that I'm going to have too many problems. So, it is what it is. But, yeah, that is that. We got everything all welded up. So, that's going to go on the shelf until I have everything. So, quick update, I guess, if you want to call it that. Just do your due diligence. Measure 15 times, cut once type of thing. But, you only learn from trial and error, right? When you're cobbling stuff that wasn't really meant to go in here to go in there, So it is what it is. But I'm really picky when it comes to alignment. I love symmetry as much as I possibly can have it. So when it comes to the steering wheel being perfectly aligned with the old one, and I had set the old one back in there to know, okay, so the center of the steering wheel is like in line with the D on the cluster, so I'm going to measure this up with the D. So I needed to know what was the center point. Where did this steering wheel sit that I need this one to sit? And I had to do all that, and then with all the hacking and cutting, I probably shortened it a little bit more. I'm just glad it didn't go down inside, because when it went down inside here is when it cocked it way over, and it was just way off. And well, I don't know if we could take a peek at how far over I was. Yeah, I mean, look, where this edge, it's hard to see, this edge over here was way up in here. That's a hell of a difference. So trying to weld this, though, up behind the shaft and with that height difference inside the truck was a pain in the ass. That was less than ideal, but they made it work. So I'm glad. I'm just glad we're finally calling victory on this section of it. Now we just got to worry about the other sections. So, like I said, stay tuned. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. God bless.